Hello, today is Friday, March 13th, 2015, and I am your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to Info2Rail, your freight train to modern media. How are you all doing on yet another freaky Friday the 13th? What are the odds of that? Two of them in a very short time together. Welcome to our show. We have a great show in store for you guys today. We are very fortunate to have the Love Doctor, Dr. Jamie Turndorf, with us today. I can't wait. This is going to be so much fun, and it's going to be an awesome show. First, we're going to do a glimpse into the paranormal news. According to anomalous.com, ghostly pursuits at University of Pennsylvania Philly.com, the Penn Ghost Project is a group of professors and students who are pursuing the truth behind local ghost stories on campus and now beyond in the school after receiving funding for their research project. They still don't want to be labeled as ghost hunters despite the fact that that's exactly what they're doing. But here's one ghost hunter group that does not shy away from the label, and summer ghost hunters find new haunts in the second season as the Tennessee Wrath Chasers return this spring on Destination America's Ghost Asylum reality show for a new season. I can't wait. That's going to be awesome. In other news, drone captures UFO on camera, and it's got everyone baffled. This is according to the Daily Star. The main reason it's got everyone baffled is because it's apparently zooming over California at a speed of around 1,800 miles an hour. Wow, there aren't many things that fly around at that speed. And of those few things, none of them are likely to be flying over California. In other high-flying news, musician Casey Musgraves details her UFO sightings and announces to the world that she's a believer. That is awesome. Well, today, as I said, we have Dr. Love, Dr. Jamie Turndorf with us. She's known to millions as Dr. Love through her website, AskDrLove.com. It's the web's first and immensely popular relationship advice site since 1995. The Ask Dr. Love radio show can be heard in Seattle on KKNW and on TalkZone, which broadcasts in 80 countries nationwide. Dr. Jamie Turndorf is the author of the new Hay House book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. Dr. Love's 10 Simple Steps to Cooling Conflicts and Rekindling Your Relationship, which has been endorsed by #1 New York Times bestseller author Jack Canfield, Dr. John Gray, John Bradshaw, and Harvard professor of psychiatry Dr. John Mack. Dr. Jamie Turndorf has also authored Till Death Do Us Part, Unless I Kill You First, a step-by-step guide for resolving relationship conflict, Make Up, Don't Break Up, Dr. Love's 5-step plan for reconciling with your ex, and Dr. Love's couples guide to surviving the jolly Hollerdays. All this is provided on her website at www.askdrlove.com. Well, we're going to take a break, guys, and we're going to hurry back. And when we do, we'll have Dr. Jamie Turndorf with us. So stay tuned, stay where you are, don't go away. We'll be right back. We're back, and we have Dr. Love, Dr. Jamie Turndorf with us. Hi.
How are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
I am looking so forward to this interview. This is going to be so much fun.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Well, first, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
You're so wonderful. Thank you for thanking me.
To start out with, I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
if you could explain to our listeners, because there's so many out there that have, so much conflict in their love lives and such.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one most important thing for our listeners to know, first of all, is what is true love?
Oh my. You want to talk about that because it's interesting because yesterday on my Ask Dr. Love radio show, I talked about creating divine love. So it's a topic that is very not understood. Yeah.
I see it a lot of times because I have a lot of people that come to me for advice as well. And it just seems like this world is losing focus or not really understanding what actual true love really is.
How long do we have to talk today?
I think, well, your person sent me 1 hour.
Oh, okay. Because normally when, I talk about Love Never Dies, what I like to do is to give your listeners a sense of the overview of the book, starting with the first part, which is my story, my love story. And then the second part, overcoming beliefs that people have that prevent them from reconnecting with their loved ones. And then in part 3, talking about how you can reconnect on your own and make peace if needed.
You know what? You can stay on as long as you want to. I have no problem with that. I've been looking so forward to this. This is so exciting.
Oh, how wonderful. I'm really glad to be with you.
Well, I'm glad that you chose to be with us, and I am very thankful. This is such it's such a deep subject, and with everything going on in this world these days, it just seems like everybody's, drifting away from each other. And I think a lot of it is because they don't know how to love each other. They don't know what true love requires, or, what it is to love somebody unconditionally and truly love them with all of you, all of yourself.
That's true.
So can you tell us what love really is to you?
Do you want to start now?
Sure.
Absolutely. Oh, so you're not going to actually do a whole intro and the whole thing. You're just going to patch that in later.
Yep. I do this, and then. Yep. I take care of that.
Absolutely fine. Okay. So I'm really glad you asked the question, because people have been asking this age-old question since the beginning of time. Because we use the word for many different things, like, oh, I love chocolate, or I love busty blondes, or bulging muscles, or cute furry animals, or my brother or sister, my mother, my father, my lover, my spouse. So how can the same word have so many different meanings? Well, since the beginning of time, human beings have really tried to define this crazy little thing called love. And recognizing the complexity of the emotion, the Greeks actually devised 4 different words to define the various forms of love, which are agape, which is unconditional love, eros, which is passionate love, philia, which is friendship or affectionate love, and storge, which is the natural love that parents, we hope, feel for their offspring. So what I think you're asking me about is the kind of love that we call eros, or passionate romantic love. Now, if you ask a scientist is going to tell you passionate romantic love is nothing more than a chemical cocktail that combines nerve growth factor and testosterone, estrogen, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin, and vasopressin. But from my point of view, that chemical cocktail is the elixir of the gods, because this love potion works divine magic on humanity, literally modifying our character, making us more flexible, more kind, more thoughtful, more considerate, more creative, more generous, more receptive, and responsive to our beloveds. And love is really a medicine that fortifies our soul's true purpose on earth, which is to perfect our ability to love others. Now, it's said when we fall passionately in love with another person, we're being intoxicated by the other person's goodness. And it's also been said that love is the attachment that results from deeply appreciating that other's goodness. Now, I also should say that, speaking of goodness, we all know that our eyes latch onto outer goodness, which, if we like what we see, triggers lust and physical attraction. But here's what I call the rub, and I don't mean that kind of rub, the physical rub. Passionate romantic love also includes lust and physical attraction. So how's a body supposed to tell the difference between lifelong erotic love and just mere physical attraction and lust. So when I talk about what is true, passionate, romantic love, I think of it in terms of a series of hurdles. The first is time. Simple lust fades in a few weeks to months, but true romantic love lasts. So partners who are deeply in love continue to feel attraction, lust, and passion forever, but that's not all. So let's say a few months have passed and your lust hasn't bitten the dust. So now how can you tell if you have the kind of romantic love that lasts a lifetime and beyond, what I call eternal love? Well, social science has pinpointed the factors that make love stay alive, and it turns out that most happy long-term couples feel like they were best friends first, last, and always. So what we know in terms of enduring passion is that homogamy or similarity plays a key role in long-term love. So that is, happy couples are those who are most similar in terms of tastes, values, and interests. And even though opposites attract, they end up fighting about every topic, large and small, and that doesn't foster long-term lasting love. So let's say a couple feels passion and has cleared the homogamy hurdle. What happens next? So they're going to probably want to form a long-term committed bond. And that long-term love bond consists of an enduring concern for each other's welfare, this sense of mutual defense. I've got your back, you've got mine, a genuine and ongoing selfless wish to please the other, and a true sense of intimacy. Now, I also must say, people think of love as a feeling, and I say you must change your thinking to know that love is an action. In order for love to survive and thrive, you have to actively appreciate the goodness in each other each and every day of your lives. But there's still more. No matter how similar two people are, conflict inevitably erupts in all our intimate relationships. And it is how we handle our conflicts and the negative feelings that go with it that will determine whether our love makes old bones or ends up in the boneyard. So love is an active process of working daily to appreciate each other's goodness and properly handling the negative feelings that inevitably arise in your relationship. And love patiently nudges you to redouble your efforts to listen, to understand, and respond well to your beloved. And these actions really help us resolve conflict and foster this kind of ongoing divine love. But ultimately, I view love as a spiritual wake-up call. It's a reminder to live each day like it's your last, sharing a heart that's really generous and wide open. Now, some of us learn that lesson when we survive a life-threatening disease or accident, or when we lose a beloved to a terminal illness or some other means. And these shakeups are wake-up calls reminding us how short our ride on earth is, and that we better get busy loving, and we better start loving well. And unfortunately for many people, when the dust of the disasters settle, it's easy to forget the lesson. But luckily, life provides us another way to learn the lesson. Love. Love is our pleasant wake-up call. It's a sweet reminder of our purpose on earth. And it is so easy to forget the lessons of love because the bills, the burdens, the baby bottles clutter our lives. And then we can become lazy and complacent and inactive. But in the end, I say true love must always triumph, because we humans must eternally strive to keep overcoming and surpassing the hurdles that life throws in the path of love. And each day we have to work to keep love alive in our hearts, to listen to each other, to understand each other, to treat the gift of each day as yet another chance to perfect our ability to love more perfectly.
Now, say somebody has all these feelings and such and feels that deep, strong connection. What happens when the act of communication is not as it needs to be in order to get through those?
Okay, so that's my first Hay House book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. Dr. Love's 10 Simple Steps to Cooling Conflict and Rekindling Your Relationship. Because as I said, no relationship can survive the negative, angry feelings that arise from unresolved conflict. And nobody knows how to resolve conflict properly. We were not taught to do it in school. We didn't watch our parents do it well. So essentially, we need to go to love school, and we must learn how to preserve this beautiful connection that brought us together and not allow it to be ruptured by the angry feelings that accompany unresolved conflicts.
That's actually very cool. Going to love school. Never
Yeah.
thought of that.
Well, that's what Dr. Love is all about.
Well, I notice, even in my own personal life, when sometimes the communication just doesn't seem that you're getting through to one another, and both people are trying to get their point across,
You can't do that
but nobody's
because you
listening.
can't both be heard at the same time.
Right.
So, I mean, I have plenty of really helpful exercises in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. And one of them is to learn how to give an emotional right of way. So whoever is the one who has the issue, who started, I'm going to work to just hold you in the palm of my hand and listen and understand you. And when you feel fully heard and understood, then we can switch and we can take turns and you can listen and understand me. But we can't be at the same time vying to be heard and understood, because then nobody gets heard. And then the voices just raise and we're more frustrated. But this is all very easily solved. Kiss Your Fights Goodbye shows you how to do it.
Okay, I know a lot of people in this world, they struggle with that bad green-eyed monster of jealousy. Even when it's not warranted, and even when the partner doesn't give them reasons to be jealous, sometimes it seems that jealousy steps in there and it becomes a problem. Or sometimes
Right. So, see, the thing is, as I always say, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And again, in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, I help you understand that the things we fight about, that is the topic du jour, whether it's jealousy or you didn't take the garbage out or you didn't give me enough foreplay or you spent too much money, these topics are not really the issue, because what they are is they're just triggering agents, and they're smoke screens for the deeper issues. And the deeper issues are always and invariably the old scars we suffered as kids. And what happens is our minds are constantly comparing present day events with the wounds we suffered when we were young. And I call this the emotional lake effect. If you think about the actual lake effect, where a storm gathers force as it sweeps across the Great Lakes, picking up moisture and force, well, our unconscious minds do the exact same thing. As we dip into the reservoir of our unconscious memory banks, we are dredging up a mountain, a monsoon of emotions from when we were young, from very many similar offenses. But unfortunately, this explains why we start going crazy and fireworks are going off inside us over a seemingly minor event in the present. But what is so diabolical is this is all happening unconsciously. All these associations, all the feelings, these emotional memories that are pouring out, we don't realize that we're really reacting to earlier events. And so now we heap all this old baggage onto our partner, and we heat the climate and create more and more fighting. And this is really how the cycle of the downward spiral of most relationships occurs. So I actually have another technique in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye where I show couples how to get around this by, believe it or not, stripping. And I'm not talking about getting naked. I'm talking about stripping away the overt content to reveal the real old scar that lurks beneath. I can give you an example of this if you want. A husband and wife are out to dinner in a restaurant, and he keeps checking his wristwatch. Finally, she gets crazy enraged, and she says, "Fine, if you can't wait to get rid of me, let's get the check and let's get the hell out of here." And he's flabbergasted. He was just checking his watch to make sure to feed the meter on time, and now she's handing him this emotional fine. Why was she so enraged? Her emotional lake effect had kicked in. Without knowing it, she was remembering all the times her father ditched her, didn't have enough time for her, okay? So here's where in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, I show you how to work together to use your relationship for its highest and most divine purpose, which is to help each other heal your mutual old scars. So as you work together, and in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, I show you how to identify the old scars that are being touched off, and then how to bring it to your partner so that now you turn your partner into your ally instead of your enemy, and you work together to give each other the right treatment that you needed to get from your parents. And as you help each other heal the old scars, you stop getting activated by whatever the topic du jour is. And now the fighting fades and the love that brought you together shines through again.
Now, what happens if there was an incident in a relationship that, caused the jealousy? It wasn't, something that's not really a trespass, something that caused a jealousy. How do you get past the things between you that have already, you're trying to resolve them, but they come back up, and that's a hard thing when you've got something there that you're trying to put in the past. It's over with and done, and it really wasn't a big deal at all.
If you can't let go of the issue, it's a sign that you are dealing with some kind of old scar from childhood. Are two clues. My reaction is disproportionate and I cannot shake it. And if we don't find ourselves able to let something go, it's generally because we haven't dealt with the core issue, and we haven't worked that through, and we haven't felt fully heard and understood and healed regarding the original issue. So as we work together in our relationship to say, listen, this is still paining me because I realize I haven't healed about what my dad did to me when he always left home and never had time for me. So this is just, you use these experiences that you find are emotional and that you cannot shake and you can't get past as nothing more than a litmus test that is letting you know what kind of healing work you need to do on the old scars that you still carry. Okay?
That makes sense.
Right. So are we going to be talking about, do you want to be talking about Love Never Dies, or you want to talk more about my conflict resolution method and Kiss Your Fights Goodbye?
I'd like to touch down on a little bit of both. I mean, I haven't had a chance to read the entirety of your books, but I've read some of them. And your techniques and such are amazing. And, I look out in this world, and this world is, old values are gone. My parents were my parents were married 50 years, and I just lost my father in October to cancer, and it was sudden. But the peace that was left behind when my dad passed, my mother has a peace, and she's able to deal with things, and she's not so devastated she can't go on, and the rest of us are at peace. I mean, 50 years, I've never seen my parents argue. My parents were very loving. They were all about taking care of each other and each other's needs. And, with my dad, we always came first. Didn't matter anything, we always came first. With my mom, the same. It seems that those values and such that, the older generation seem to be able to hold on to what they had and value it so much more. And it's so hard because now it seems nobody values who they're with. It seems that everybody's replaceable.
Yeah, it's a disposable society. Yeah. But the thing is, I am a living testimony to the power of an eternal love that survives beyond the veil of, the thin veil that separates us between, the afterlife, as we call it. And, that's what I was talking about yesterday on Ask Dr. Love. How do you create a divine love that lasts eternally? And essentially, that's what Kiss Your Fights Goodbye addresses. It shows you how to treat each other in a way that will make your love bulletproof. And then I'm, living proof of what happens when you have a bulletproof bond, as I talk about in Love Never Dies, my discovery that my husband never left me and your loved ones are right here with you too. So And that it's never too late to reconnect, and you don't need a medium and a channeler and a psychic to do it. You can do it all by yourself. So may I talk with you a little bit more about Love Never Dies?
Absolutely. That would be great.
Okay, so I'm very passionate about this latest Hay House book that I published because, I mean, really it's become a mission for me to get my story out. And let me start by just sharing a little bit about my story so people will understand why I'm so passionate about this. So from the time I was a young girl, I actually had a premonition of the man that I was going to marry. I saw him fleshed out. I saw his face. I saw his features. And so I said to myself, I'm just going to wait until he actually appears in my life. And he did appear on the first day of my freshman year at Vassar College. I had been shut out of all the introductory sociology classes, and I went to the secretary and asked, how can I get into sociology? And she said, go into the department chair, Jean Pin's office, and see if he can find a seat for you in one of the closed classes. Well, the minute I stepped into his office, I had the most extraordinary out-of-body experience. I felt my soul shooting through a tunnel at high speed to the end of my life. And then I shot back into my body, and at which point I got the message, remember every aspect of this meeting. He is going to be everything to you one day.
Wow.
Well, I forgot about that. That was a pretty wild thing on your first day at freshman year of Vassar College.
Absolutely.
But I forgot about that. But what I did find out soon after was that for most of his life, Jean had been one of the most famous Jesuit priests in history. He had taught at the Vatican, and he founded a movement called Liberation Theology designed to fight church oppression from within. And he actually was a radical feminist priest, and he publicly opposed the Pope and the Catholic Church as they were trying to block the legalization of divorce. And he didn't want to see women trapped in marriages where they were being abused. So he fought on the grounds of liberation theology, separation of church and state. The church should butt out of the private sector. Well, he won. And he got the divorce bill passed, changed the course of Italian history. And soon after, the Pope granted him the dispensation of his vows, and he left the Jesuit order and the priesthood. So now, he's at Vassar for 10 years. I meet him on my freshman year, my first day. And then 4 years later, in my senior year, I needed help with a statistical portion of my thesis. And I had heard that Jean had also been a statistician, having founded the Vatican's first and only social research center. So even though he wasn't my advisor, I asked him, would you help me with my statistics for my thesis? And he gladly gave me his time. And within a couple of weeks, we knew we were crazy for each other. Despite our different cultures, backgrounds, religions, we were perfectly compatible. We were twins separated at birth. We were actually soulmates. Now, I have to say that I was raised by two devout Jewish atheists. The only religion my parents practiced was religiously hating each other.
Wow.
They taught me not to believe in God or the afterlife. I never read the Bible, never went to synagogue or church. So here I am with this incredibly devout man, one of the most famous theologians, and we are together for 27 years, and we are inseparable. Now, in the last year of his life, we both started to have a premonition that he was going to die of an accident. We just didn't know when or where. So we went to Italy on our final vacation, as we're sitting on the beach, his hand was up over his head as if to block the rays of the sun. Well, the next thing I know, a bee swoops down and stings his hand at the exact location of Christ's stigmata. And I watch my beloved suffocate to death in front of my eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Now, to describe the trauma of this, it's very hard to describe. In the first part of Love Never Dies, I do, share what I went through. I go back to the hotel bed, and I am hysterical. I'm shaking. I'm trembling. I'm crying. Well, the next thing I know, I feel this man's hand stroke the entire length of my spine. I sit bolt upright. I look over my shoulder. Well, nothing and nobody is there. But he was there with me in spirit form, and he's been with me ever since. Now, his astonishing and ongoing manifestations to this day in front of witnesses have proven to me that we don't die and our relationships aren't meant to end in death. So I've created a groundbreaking new transdimensional grief therapy method, and it totally diverges from the Western approach to grief, which is grieve, let go, and move on, which only leaves the bereaved at an even greater loss. Instead, my method shows the bereaved how to say hello, not goodbye, without the assistance of a medium, a channeler, or a psychic. And there's one more thing. As a shrink, I know millions of people worldwide harbor unfinished business with the dead. And again, Western grief therapy offers us no way of making peace with the deceased. But my new dialoguing with the departed technique offers the first vehicle in history for enabling the bereaved to not only reconnect, but also make peace with the deceased.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. After I lost my father, I never felt like he was gone. You know,
Get it.
I feel like he's always here.
That's right.
I can't physically hear him, but I hear him, you know, in
your head.
Yeah, I can hear
That's
him.
Thought induction or mind melding.
Yeah, I
yes.
can hear him.
And
you know?
we don't hear voices. We don't. People, that's a misconception. You know, if people think, well, I don't hear. Nobody hears. Not even mediums hear.
Right.
It's just a thought that pops into your head. So now, in Love Never Dies, what I do is, in part one, I tell you my story. May I tell you a few of the examples from part one of his astonishing manifestations?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first night I'm back from Italy, and I spent the whole night, of course, crying and alone in our bed. And the next morning, I haven't slept a wink. I go down to the kitchen, and I hear Jean, again, putting a thought in my head, open the back door. I want to show you something. So I open the back door, and what do I see? A chipmunk is sitting on the back step, but this chipmunk is not acting like a normal wild chipmunk. He's frozen in place, as if in a trance. He's not moving. The next thing I know, that chipmunk begins to mimic my husband's death scene. He is ripping at his little face with his hands, the way my husband was ripping at the oxygen mask because the air just wasn't going in and he was suffocating. And the chipmunk is showing me exactly what I saw my husband do. And for 20 minutes, I watch this scene and I'm crying. I'm so overwhelmed. And the next thing I know, the chipmunk visibly coughs up a wonk of mucus, and he's in peace. And I knew my husband was speaking to me through this animal. And I've come to coin the expression open vessel because animals, domestic and wild, are open vessels for spirit to communicate with us. So here he was telling me through the chipmunk, I'm fine. Now, a couple of days later, I had to fax his death certificate to Verizon to take his name off of the account. And I had made many multi-page faxes throughout the day without a hitch. But now I had to fax his death certificate. The cover letter fax is no problem, but when the death certificate goes to fax, the machine hangs up and won't fax it. Now I try with the obit. Again, the cover letter faxes, but the obit won't fax. I tried 20, 25 times. It just doesn't work. The next day I go to my lawyer's office. I have the papers with me. I don't tell the secretary why. I just say, would you mind faxing these for me to Verizon? So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting while she's in the back office. And after about a half hour, she comes out of the back with all the other secretaries, and they're crying. And they said to me, Jamie, we tried and tried and tried, but no matter how many times we tried, the cover letter would fax, but neither the death certificate nor the obit would fax. And they said, he's trying to tell you he's not gone.
Wow.
So now I go home, and again, I have to fax the death certificate. And again, it hangs up. So I stop. And I say, Jean, I think you're doing this because you're trying to remind me you're still here with me. And if I promise to try to remember, will you let this fax go through in its entirety? I instantly feel this tidal wave of love pouring over me. And I realize that was his acknowledgement. He heard me. I cancel the fax. I reissue the fax. It goes through in its entirety.
Wow.
So now around this time, this is what's so crazy. I have strangers walking up to me. They don't know me, don't know my husband, don't know that I'm widowed. And they just walk up to me and they say, your husband says, tell our story. And they walk on.
Wow.
So now another day I'm driving. And for the first time in my life, I feel the need to pray to him to help my friend Emily find love. I'm driving in the car. I look at the clock. I feel again that tidal wave of love. And again, I see that that feeling is his way of saying, I heard you. And I note it's 4:58 on the clock. And I just say, please help Emily find love. She's never had love in her life. That night, Emily phones me. She doesn't know, she never knew Jean, never saw a picture of him. And she says to me, Jamie, you will not believe what happened to me today at 4:58. She says, I fell into a trance and your husband appeared to me. And she describes him perfectly. She says, he told me to find love, follow the gray stones to the church in your neighborhood. Now, by having her repeat my prayer to him, he was proving to me that he had heard my prayer, but he was also blessing Emily by sending her to the church. Now, the next week, I go to my professional group where Emily is a member. And she tells the story. And at this point, another member of the group named Mitch Wood, who was a former seminarian, asks her, what was the name of the church in your neighborhood? And she says, it's called the Claremont Church. And Mitch says, oh my gosh, the Claremont Church is New York City's only liberation theology seminary. So remember, my husband founded Liberation Theology. Yeah. So he put his stamp on this manifestation by sending her to a Liberation Theology church. So I would know he was on it. Okay. Wow. So now here, this is just the last example I'm going to give you. I'm in the closet one day and I'm crying. And I'm thinking, I have to call my friend Anne. No, don't bother her. It's the middle of her workday. Oh, I have to call her. And after a half hour of this thought, the phone rings and I drag myself up out of the closet. I go get the phone. It's Anne. She says to me, Jamie, did you just call me? And I tell her, no, Anne, I was thinking of calling you, but I was crying on the floor. I didn't get up. So she says to me, but Jamie, my phone rang and your name and number appeared on my caller ID. Wow. Now, this blew our minds that he was saying, I know that you're upset. I know you want to talk to her. I'll do it for you. So now, a year later, I had a really bad cough. And I thought, I'm going to suffocate to death the way he did. And I plead with him at this moment, please do that caller ID phone trick. This time, do it with my housekeeper, Donna. 2 seconds later, my phone rings. It's Donna. She says, Jamie, did you call? I said, no, Donna. I tell her the story. She says, my phone rang and your name and number appeared on the caller ID. So now, a couple of months later, I go to my writers group, and the head of the group, his name is Gabe Davis, another devout Jewish atheist. And I tell him all the manifestations that Jean has been performing and culminating in these phone tricks. So Gabe says to me, you know, Jamie, I sure would like to see that phone trick repeated. And this time, I would like to see whether your phone shows a record of having been manipulated to dial out even though you didn't use it. So I promptly forget that he makes this request. A month later, I'm due to meet him and his wife for dinner, and I'm driving behind them in my own car when again I feel that tidal wave of love. I look at the clock and I see it's 4:58 again. I get to the restaurant parking lot. I get out of my car. Gabe runs up to me. He says, Jamie, you will not believe what happened. I said, what happened, Gabe? He says, at 4:58, my cell phone rang. I looked at the caller ID. Your name and number was on the display. He said, I picked up the call and a man's voice said, is Jamie there? Is Jamie there? He said the voice extended the word there like it had an accent. My husband was French, and he did extend that word. It sounded like there. He said it wasn't a real call. The voice just faded off. It never clicked off. He says, go get your phone. See if it dialed me. So I dig into the bottom of my purse. Sure enough, at 4:58, it dialed Gabe. So the point of all these over-the-top manifestations is because he asked me to tell our story to you. So these manifestations are for you and for everybody listening, because as Jean told me right after he left his body, let our love shine like a torch that lights the path for others. So our story is meant to let you know that your loved ones are here with you too, and they're just waiting for you to open your door to them.
Wow, that is amazing.
I know. This is
That
why I'm so
is
passionate about telling our story.
that is so awesome. I couldn't even imagine. I don't
I
know.
know.
I don't know if I don't know. I've been into the paranormal for a lot of years, and I do a lot of ghost hunting stuff for people close here and stuff. But I don't know how I'd handle that.
When you read part 1 of Love Never Dies, it's just, I mean, it's like this every day with me, So should I go on now and talk about where we go from here with part 2? I'm now switching to you and everybody else. How can you overcome the false beliefs and the religious teachings that prevent you from reconnecting? And I also talk in part 2 of Love Never Dies how it's even possible to communicate with those in spirit. So can I talk a little bit about this?
Absolutely, that would be great.
Okay. So the first obstacle to reconnecting is we have to overcome the wrong belief that we're not supposed to stay in connection with loved ones in spirit. Now, how did I discover that this is a wrong belief? Well, it was my first night back from Italy, and I heard Jean speaking to me, and he was quoting something I didn't recognize. Now, the next day I went to Jean's priest, whom I'd never met, to prepare the readings for his funeral. And I said, Jean's been talking to me and he's quoting something. Now, at this moment, the priest raised his brow in obvious skepticism. And I could think he was thinking, this babe has really rounded the bend. She's lost it, right? But then when I told him what Jean was saying, I saw that priest go white. He crossed himself and he said, "Dear God, Jamie, at first I didn't believe that Jean was talking to you, but I do now." And then he told me I was quoting an obscure biblical passage from the Communion of Saints. Like I would have known? I said, I never read the Bible. I never went to church. Jean and I didn't discuss religion. So it took me a year to understand why Jean chose to quote that and only that passage to me. Remember, he was a religious pioneer in life, and he continues to be in the afterlife. The Communion of Saints says that our loved ones in spirit are one with or in communion with God and the saints. And since the Bible is telling us we're supposed to stay in communion and communication with God and the saints, this means we are supposed to stay in communication and communion with our loved ones in spirit because they are one with God and the saints. So the point is, what we've been told about the afterlife is dead wrong, if you'll pardon the pun. We are not meant to live in an emotional wasteland, separated from those we love, waiting until we die and enter heaven. Because as Jean told me, heaven is a state, not a place. Heaven is all around us. Heaven is here and now. And this means we are supposed to reconnect with loved ones in spirit now.
Wow, I've never heard that.
Nobody's ever said it before. This is why I'm so excited, because he's telling me this. How would I know? Because like I said, he's a religious pioneer, and he is actually bringing the biblical foundation for why don't believe what they've told you. Now, here's another misconception that he cleared up as well, which is why I want everybody to hear this one. This misconception is, well, once they're in heaven, you won't hear from them anymore. Now, how did I find that misconception out? Because I went back to Jean's priest and I said, he continues to talk to me. And the priest said, well, once he's in heaven, you won't hear from him anymore. And I thought, what? There are no cell towers in heaven? What? The cell signals aren't strong enough from earth to heaven? It's ridiculous. So this is bothering me the whole day. And I go home, and it's the evening now, and I'm set to run a group in my home office. Now, in my home office, I have a group room. So I'm in the group room with a new patient named Ashley. All the other group members are late. She doesn't know me. She's never seen me or my husband. It's her first day, and she doesn't even know I'm a widow. The next thing I know, I hear ding, ding, which is the sound my front door makes when the burglar alarm registers that the door is opening. And then I hear loud pounding footsteps. And then they stop in my waiting room outside the group room. And I say to Ashley, gee, somebody must think it's an individual therapy session time and got his or her day wrong. Now I hear the footsteps pounding loudly in the opposite direction, ding, ding, and the front door opens and closes again. So now I say to her, excuse me, I've got to go, see who this is. Now, mind you, I have a very long driveway and the parking area is very far from the house. So whoever was here would not have been able to walk to the parking area and drive off in the time it took me to get to the front door. So I rush to the front door. I open the door. There's nobody there. I come back and I tell Ashley there was nobody there. So she says to me, it was a spirit. So that was my husband's answer to the priest's misconception, once I'm in heaven, you won't hear me anymore. Did you hear those loud pounding footsteps?
There you go. That's awesome.
Right? Right? So then I talk about some of the other misconceptions that prevent us from reconnecting. And so another one is, oh, if you reconnect, you won't be able to move on with your life. This is totally untrue. I'm getting calls on my Hay House radio show from all over the world and emails from all over the world, people crying in gratitude as they've reconnected. They instantly transform their grief to joy. So in fact, reconnecting using my method helps you to more fully enter your life and to enter it with so much joy so that you're even more present. And then some people will say, well, but if you stay connected to loved ones in spirit, especially a life partner or spouse, you can't love again. Well, that's not true either. That would be like saying to a mother, well, you had one child, you can't have any more because you've loved that first child, you can't love another. Right. That's not true either, because our hearts are made to love. And we have plenty of room to love everybody who walks the earth and plus everybody who's walking in spirit. Now, here's another one that people like to think is true, and it's not. Oh, you're opening the door to evil. Well, this is also not true, because our loved ones in spirit are our gatekeepers. They're here to protect us and shower us in love. Besides, we all have internal spiritual call blocking capabilities. You don't want to take a call, don't take a call. But in truth, I have never found any evil. What I find is that the evil is a figment of our own minds. That's what I have found. So now, in the second half of part 2 of Love Never Dies, I talk about how is spirit communication even possible? And I kind of demystify it for you, because basically, what we're talking about here is energetic communication. Now, we energetically communicate all the time. We're all born with the innate ability to communicate energetically, and we do it every day. For example, we park at a light. You look over at a driver in the neighboring car. Doesn't that driver always look back at you? That's energetic communication. That driver's sensing the energetic frequency of your gaze. Twins know when the other's in trouble at opposite ends of the world. Mothers sense when their babies are in need. Close couples know what the other's thinking. This is all energetic communication. And then I talk about the fact that many prominent figures throughout history, from Socrates to Helen Keller, have reported having personal contact with spirits. Thomas Edison said in Scientific American, it's reasonable to conclude that those who have left the earth would like to communicate with those they've left here. And he says, I claim it's possible to construct an apparatus which will be so delicate as to enable those in spirit to get in touch with us. And he was actually making this apparatus when he died in 1931. And even Einstein, Albert Einstein, in his introduction to Upton Sinclair's book on telepathy, mental radio, called on science to take this phenomenon seriously. Sigmund Freud wrote in 1921, if I had my life to live over again, I should devote myself to psychical research rather than psychoanalysis. And Jung pretty much said the same thing. So we don't reconnect because essentially we have not been told it's possible, and we've been told it's impossible. So basically, after we go through part 2, where I debunk all the false teachings and show you how it's not anything mystical at all. It's something that's just sending and receiving energetic signals. Now I move to part 3 of Love Never Dies, where I show you how to establish your own connection with loved ones in spirit and without the assistance of a channeler, a medium, or a psychic. So do you want me to move into part 3 with you?
Absolutely. This is awesome.
Okay. All right. So now in part 3, I remind you, we're all born with the ability to communicate with spirit. And so in part 3, I show you how to tune your brain to what I call the spirit channel. Okay. Now, Jean showed me how to do this. And then in Love Never Dies, I share what Jean led me to do. So the first chapter in part 3 of Love Never Dies is how to create a state of receptivity, how to be open to spirit. Because Jean said to me very early on, Jamie, the noise of the day drowns me out. So anytime you want to hear me, come to the bed and be still and quiet. So in this chapter, I show you how to find pockets of peace. Okay, how to sit in silence more, how to turn off the TV and the music, how to pick a peaceful practice that suits you, like yoga, tai chi, qigong. Then I show you how to use your breath. Spirit is born on the breath. Next, I show you how to surrender to your emotional states without getting too upset, because this is a fine line we have to walk. It's a tightrope. You want to be open, but you can't allow your emotions to get you so upset, because if you're too upset, it blocks the sending and receiving of signals. So I talk about that and show you how to walk that fine line. And I also show you how to be receptive by using what we call hypnagogic or twilight states, which is the point just before you fall asleep or the point just when you wake up. I also show you how to use nature to nudge you closer to your ability to send and receive energetic signals. And then I give you some really fun exercises for opening up your 5 senses. Because remember, spirit beings are pure energy. So they're able to energetically send signals to all your senses. And the more your sensory receiver is turned on, the easier it's going to be for you to perceive the signs that are being sent your way. Okay, so now the next chapter is a logical conclusion for you. How do you recognize the signs of spirit presence? Now, what's really amazing is I've had so many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people say to me, well, I'm not getting any signs. But then I lay out a list of the signs. And in no time, they're saying, oh, well, that happened to me, and so did that too. So because the point, again, is freed from the human vessel, spirits are able to influence the material world in infinite ways. Signs include an infinite array of sounds, animals behaving oddly, like the chipmunk, weird sensations, drafts, temperature changes, chills, goose flesh, symbolic communications, butterflies, and even coins that were minted on a year that was significant to you and the other person. And I have a really fun example of this. It was the anniversary week of my husband's bodily departure. And I said to a patient of mine named Kyla, you know, this week especially, Jean will drop a lot of coins on me that were minted on the anniversary year of his bodily death. And she blinks and she says to me, oh my gosh, Jamie, I almost forgot. And she says, see my cowboy boots that I'm wearing? Well, they were off of me in my bedroom, in the middle of my bedroom, when I saw a coin falling out of nowhere and landing in the boot. And I got a message that the coin was meant for you. And so I kept it in there, and I'm glad you reminded me. So at this moment, I hear Jean say, you'll see when she gives it to you, it was minted on the year I left my body. So now I go and I get my eyeglasses. She hands me the coin. Sure enough, it was minted on the year that he left his body.
Wow.
Okay. So now what I say in Love Never Dies is, for most people, becoming aware of the signs is often sufficient for you to begin the process of reconnecting. But now here's where Love Never Dies takes you and spirit communication to a new place. In fact, the CEO of Hay House said, we've never seen anything like where you go now, because I show you how you can actually dialogue back and forth with the departed to reconnect, to obtain guidance, and also heal unfinished business and make peace if needed. Now, I want everybody listening to know that spirits dialogue with us in many ways. So in addition to communicating through dreams and mind melding, and also communicating with us through signs. But again, signs are a static form of communication where they drop a sign on us, like that coin, okay, and we observe it. But we can engage in an actual back and forth communication between us and spirit with the help of both open vessels and earthly props. So can I give you an example of the difference between how we can communicate back and forth versus static signs? Can I do that?
Absolutely. Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. So, here's a really good example of how they communicate with us statically through signs, and then how we can make those signs come to life in a back and forth dialogue. Okay. It was the anniversary week of Jean's bodily death this year. I went to my chiropractor, and Teresa was at the reception desk. We were alone in the office. And I started to speak about Love Never Dies and said, I'm going to give my first public talk on the book. At that moment, I smelled gardenias. That's a sign. Now, I didn't say a word. She said, Jamie, do you smell gardenias? So he was giving her the same sign. I said, Teresa, that's called the scent of sanctity. And Jean is giving us both a sign that he's here. Okay. Now, the next day, I saw a patient who needed to reconnect with her sister in spirit. And I told her the story about the scent of gardenias. Now, at that moment, I heard Jean dialoguing with me, saying, I wish I could give you a bouquet of roses. Jean always gave me roses every week. Now, Jean was dialoguing with me by inducing that thought in my mind. Now, here's how he used my patient as an open vessel to engage in a back and forth dialogue with me. The patient abruptly sat up and said, Jamie, do you smell roses? So he made her smell roses so that he could confirm to me, I heard him when he said, I wish I could give you roses. Now, in that beautifully elegant manifestation, he put the thought in her mind to facilitate this back and forth dialogue between us. And he let me know that I had heard him, while also bolstering my patient's confidence in her ability to hear spirit so that she could reconnect with her sister. Now, let me give you another example of how spirits dialogue with us and how we can dialogue with them using people who are open vessels. So remember, animals, domestic and wild, are open vessels, but so are some people who are willing to be used in the service of love. So my friend Anne was coming to dinner to take me out. And I say aloud to Jean, I'm dialoguing with him, Jean, it feels like you're coming home to me whenever she comes to take me to dinner because she allows you to speak through her. Now, a couple seconds later, she walks in the door and she says, honey, I'm home.
Wow.
Now, she claps her hand over her mouth because she thought it was a rude joke. I said to her, oh, no, that wasn't a rude joke. Jean was dialoguing with me through you. He was saying, I heard you. I heard you say it feels like I'm coming home. And I answered through you, honey, I'm home. So now we're at dinner. And you have to know, Anne is very stoical. She wouldn't cry if her kid was hit by a bus. Next thing I know, she starts to get this glazed expression on her face like the chipmunk. And now I see tears start pouring out of her eyes. And then she says, you look so beautiful tonight. I wish I had a camera. Those were the exact words that Jean would say to me when we were alone and out to dinner in a restaurant. Nobody heard that but me. So he used her to dialogue with me. Now, here's an amazing example that only happened about a week or so ago that shows how our loved ones can dialogue with us through an open vessel and through what I call earthly props. Being mostly, earthly props are electronic devices mostly, because they're being pure energy, they're able to easily interrupt the operation of electronic devices. So I was on Coast to Coast Radio, and Love Never Dies became an overnight bestseller. While I was on the show, this happened. And I get an email from a man named J.C. Gold who was listening to my interview. And he is a guy, he's the cosmic artist, and he is able to draw illustrations of loved ones living or in spirit, and then he channels messages. So he says to me, as soon as he heard me on the show, Jean started bombarding him with messages for me. And it was crazy what started happening. He said, my brains are bursting from the messages. So now he writes me, and it is Valentine's Day. And he says, you will not believe what's happened to me. He said, my hands were in my lap. I wasn't even touching my computer when I heard Jean's voice saying to me, send her the photograph of the peach rose. Remember I said Jean gave me roses each week?
Yeah.
Well, he gave me peach-colored roses. Now, nobody would know this, obviously. Now, the man says, with his hands on his lap, Jean opens a menu of all kinds of photos on his computer. Now, this man's wife is a professional photographer, and then Jean opens a photo of a peach rose. At this moment, another caption opens under the peach rose. It's the name of the photo, and the name is Peaches and Cream. Now, the night before, JC wrote to me and said, Jean wants you to know your time is now. And I had written back to JC, Jean always told me the cream rises to the top. So that picture was Peaches and Cream.
Wow.
Is that unreal?
That
so
is
now,
awesome.
Unreal, wonderful. So now, in Love Never Dies, I show you how to dialogue, how you can do the dialogue. So, and it's necessary for us to dialogue, to say goodbye if someone was ripped from us due to a sudden illness or accidental death or even a long-term illness, and the person just leaves you unexpectedly. We need to dialogue to get support as we travel down the bumpy road called life. We need to have them help us in completing our spiritual development and give us guidance. But now, what if you're one of the millions of people who harbors some unfinished business with someone in spirit? Well, here's where Love Never Dies shows you how to dialogue to heal that unfinished business. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking my conflict resolution method as presented in the first Hayes book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, and I'm bringing it to the world of after-death communication. So in part 3 of Love Never Dies, I show you how to enter a trance. Then we do my meditation for making contact. And then I show you how to dialogue back and forth in writing and or using a tape recorder. And I show you with lots of case examples how you can do this until you make peace. But the most exciting aspect of this whole news is that you often have to wait until someone has left his or her body in order to work it out. Because in spirit form, they're more evolved. And in spirit form, they see how they screwed up. And I only discovered this 1 week after Jean left his body. I went to the car garage. He always did the car thing. And I introduced myself to Debbie and I say, hi, I'm widowed and I'm doing the car thing now. Jean can't do it anymore. And she says, I'm widowed too. At that moment, I hear her husband pounding down my door to get a message across to her. And this is what he says. Please tell her, stop making the same mistake that I made with our son. She's now creating the same power struggle I did. I say this to her. She bursts into tears and she says, it's true. But the most important aspect of this to me was her husband needed to be out of his body in spirit form to understand the mistakes that he made when he was in a body. So this means you often have to wait until they leave their bodies to work it out. But now there's something even more astounding too. They actually need our help to evolve spiritually, that they're counting on us not only to work with us and help us heal any unfinished business we have with them, but they need us to help them heal and evolve spiritually. Now, how did I find this out? It was Good Friday, right after Jean left his body, the first Good Friday, and he's leading me to a place where the bird lady is. Now, I don't know this woman except that she tried to help us save our little canary who was terminally ill and she wasn't able to. So he sends me here and I walk in the door, and as soon as I walk in the door, I realize I've been sent to try to help one of her birds. So she says to me, you see this Gouldian finch here? This finch has not eaten in 2 days, and they are so small, if they don't eat within 2 days, they're dead, and this bird will be dead by nightfall. I look over at this poor little bird, and the bird is looking very much on its last leg, all fluffed up, and it's just slumped over. So I say to her, could I please try to help the bird? So she says, okay. So I go over to the cage, I press my cheek against the bars, and I begin to speak aloud to the bird. Now, I'm energetically communicating with this bird, but I'm saying it aloud so this bird lady can hear what I'm saying. I tell the bird, go down to that seed bowl and eat right now. The bird obeys me, goes down, and starts scarfing up seeds like a little mini vacuum. The more the bird eats, the stronger the bird gets. The next thing I know, I become aware of two spirit presences in the room. The first is her mother. Now, I don't know who's alive and who's in spirit, but I hear her mother saying, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from him. I'm sorry I was such a weakling. So I say this to the bird lady, and she says to me, my mother used to always say she was a weakling. Now I'm aware of another presence. And so is the little bird. The bird stops eating, is craning its neck upward, and it's starting to look really sick again. And I become aware of the fact that the bird got sick because of these spirit presences, especially this male presence. So I tell the bird, go back to eating. Don't worry about it. I'm going to help Lainey talk to this other presence. At this point, I hear the male presence. It's her father. And he says, I am so sorry that I sexually molested you, but don't be afraid of me anymore. I can't hurt you anymore. And she bursts into tears and she says, oh my gosh, I have been afraid of him. I'm still afraid of him. And I have carried this fear from the time I was young. So he is begging her now to confront him. He says, you must confront me about what I did to you for your own healing and growth and for me to be able to move on. And that's when I realized they need us to make peace with them as much as we need to make peace with them.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Now, here's the neatest part of all. What is our purpose on earth? We all know we're here to perfect our ability to love ourselves and others, which is how we began our talk together, right? This life is our love lab. But we can't love others if we don't love ourselves. Now, I am living proof of the challenge. How do you love yourself when you were raised in a crazy family? I was beaten physically. I was beaten verbally. And I continued to hear my parents' mean voices putting me down on my head throughout my entire adult life. Even though Jean was so loving to me, even though he was such an antidote, it never stopped their voices. And their voices tore down my self-esteem and my confidence. Now, after he left his body, I went to my professional group and I was just in agony over this. And I just said, I can't get these voices to go away, no matter what I do. So they all said, this is the traditional therapy party line, yell louder, make our voices yell them into submission. That never worked. It never would work. Now I came home and Jean appeared to me in a visitation and he brought me the answer. He appeared as the embodiment of love. He was surrounded in golden light and I will never forget it. He took my face in his hand. He turned me toward him in the light. And he said, listen, listen, listen to me. Allow my love to enter you. And then I realized not even his earthly love for me could bring me to this place of self-love. But now that he was in spirit form, freed from the vessel of his human body, his spirit and his love for me could enter me unimpeded. And in that moment, his love for me became my own self-love. And so reconnecting with your loved ones in spirit is your fast track to self-love. And so as we connect to our loved ones and we open the door of our heart to them and we allow them to heal all our unfinished business and heal every corner of our souls, we are now filled to overflowing with a love that we can share with the world.
Wow.
That's love never dies.
It almost leaves you speechless. You don't even know what
I
to
know
say.
that's love never dies. I mean, people just tell me, oh my gosh, I had to read the book in one sitting and I was just crying through a good part of it. And then I went back and read it again more slowly.
That is fabulous. You never even think. You could connect with somebody on that kind of level.
And that is and I had Mira Kelly on my Ask Dr. Love radio show. And when I said that to her, connecting with your loved ones is your fast track to self-love. Connect to them in spirit. You've got the fast track to self-love. And she said to me, oh my gosh, I've never thought of it in that way. But, Jean has revealed quite a bit to me. And this is why it's my passion to bring this story out and this message out to the world, that you do not need to live in an emotional wasteland. Do not buy into what you've been told about the afterlife. It's dead wrong. Reconnect and let them heal every part of you, so that then you can go and bring all this abundant love that they fill you with to the world. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for, to love ourselves, to perfect our ability to love ourselves and perfect our ability to love others. And that's what Love Never Dies shows you how to do.
Wow. That is amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad. And
oh,
by the way, I thought everybody listening might like to know this. When you come to AskDrLove.com, my main website, AskDrLove.com, and sign up for my free newsletter, you will receive a free gift, which is the preface and the introduction of Love Never Dies. And a lot of people do that because they can't wait to get the book. So that way they get started on the book, and then by the time it arrives in the mail or they get a chance to go out and buy it at the bookstore, well, now they've gotten a head start.
Yeah, but then it's going to be so hard to stop reading. They're going to have to rush out and get it.
Right.
That is amazing. Yeah. I have a few questions that some listeners have asked me. I had 3 people ask me one question, the same question, and that is, they're in long distance relationships and they're struggling a little bit, and I have 3 people asking me, can a long distance relationship actually work?
But of course. Well, I mean, of course. Now, here's the tricky thing that most people don't realize. Remember, I talked before about the fact that we all have old scars. Yes. And our intimate relationships bring up our old scars. And there is a method to the madness, because we really, you know how when you get a splinter, the body tries to create a lot of pus around the splinter to force the pus and the poison and the splinter out? Well, our old scars are like a splinter in our soul. So we always have these splinters coming up so that we can hopefully use our relationship to heal it. We don't know how, but again, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye shows you how. Now, when you're in a long distance relationship, it makes it easier for the old scars to come into the forefront and quickly, because the other person is a blank screen to you. You don't really see the person on a daily basis. You might only be texting or emailing or speaking on the phone. So when we don't have visual cues and constant visual cues, it makes it easier for the unconscious to turn that other person into the parent we had difficulty with, and the old scars are erupting. Okay? So that is a tricky aspect. But it can be done. But you have to know your old scars, and you have to be in a relationship with someone who is on the same path as you, really interested in growing and evolving and healing your mutual old scars. And then you can make it work.
Huh. Well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a couple people that have wanted me to ask, in their relationships, there's the thought of infidelity, encroaching into their relationships due to the fact that their partner does not meet their sexual needs.
Okay, so the thought is, you're not meeting my sexual needs, so now I'm starting to think about going and getting my sexual fix elsewhere.
Right, staying with their partner, but finding what they're missing sexually with somebody else. And when they come to me and ask me this, I always say to them, is that one-time fix or that other person that you're going to really worth losing that specialness you have?
So first of all, remember I said we have to learn how to strip away the overt content. A lot of times we think, oh, the sex stinks. Oh, if I just got laid elsewhere, I'd be happy, right? But the thing is, when sex goes bad, it's usually a symptom that something else is on the fritz in the relationship. Because usually in the beginning of a relationship, it's the fireworks are flying, the sex is great. You remember you had good sex with that partner. So it's not that you're not sexually compatible. It's generally because something is going wrong. For women, I don't know if you're getting these questions from women.
Yes.
Mostly?
Yep.
Right. So for women, we have essential relationship nutrients that we require that are different from men. We women need to feel safe and secure in a relationship. And if we don't feel safe and secure, I talk a lot about this in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, our sex drive, our sexual attraction, our sexual desire for that partner goes out the window. So we think, oh, well, if I get laid elsewhere, that's just what I need. No, what's wrong is your partner isn't giving you the right feeling. You're not feeling safe and secure. So now you're thinking about, I don't want to have sex with you because, and there's a biological reason why I don't want to have sex with you, because this, we're animals. Even though we might not need a man to provide for us and protect us, our physiology doesn't really know that. Our physiology says, you don't feel safe to me. You don't feel secure. I don't want to have sex with you because I don't want to have a baby if there's not going to be a man to stick around and protect me in the offspring. Even though you don't have to get pregnant, you could use your birth control, you could, have sex and not get pregnant. Our body doesn't know from this. Our body just says, nope, my sex drive has turned off to you. You don't feel good. You don't feel safe. So basically, you work on what's on the fritz in the relationship. You reconnect, as I show you how to do in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. You learn how to listen and understand each other and have your partner listen and understand you. And your conflicts are resolved. And believe me, that is the greatest aphrodisiac of all.
Well, in one instance, I have a friend, and this is her situation. I mean, she can, her boyfriend they've been together a lot of years, but I mean, he will have sex with her if she asks for it, but he really doesn't show any interest if she doesn't. And it makes her feel like he doesn't love her that way anymore.
Okay, do you hear again? Here we go. It's not the sex. It's what it symbolizes to her. Sex is never only about sex. Money isn't only about money. The fact that he doesn't initiate makes her feel unloved. So we don't even want to focus on the sex, because then if you focus on the sex, now you're caught in a power struggle. Well, you only asked me once. You didn't ask me for 6 months. And now you're lost in the overt content and you're missing the point, which is the feeling and what old scar it brings up for you and who didn't make you feel loved enough as a kid. Do you see what I mean? Now, when you go there and you connect it to your history, your partner understands on a very deep level what this behavior means to you. And as you talk and you reveal what the old scar is for you and how his not approaching you affects you, in most cases, if the guy really loves you and he's attracted to you and there's something wrong with him medically, he will shift because he wants to be giving to you. But the reason why most people don't get to the resolution is because we women tend to do a lot of complaining, nagging, whining, blaming, and then the guy gets mad, and of course he wants to give you less. And now you're in a power struggle. He withholds more. You're demanding more. That's what Kiss Your Fights is all about. That common pattern that men and women get into. I demand, he withdraws. So you have to learn how to talk about it in a way that sparks your partner's empathy so that he understands your old scars and how this lack of approach on his part is tipping off your old scars. And then as we talk about it, we even come into what his old scars are. When you nag me, it reminds me of my mother, and then I feel like digging my heels and giving you less. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. That makes sense.
Yes.
I have a question. This one was from a man, and his question was, how can you tell if your partner is truly into you, that they really want to be with you and they're not just with you for the convenient part of it?
Well, this is something only your gut can tell you. Your heart knows whether somebody is into you or is just using you or is just with you for convenience. We women know. We have the instincts to tell us everything. We have gut reactions. We just may not listen all the time, but we know.
Well, this came from a man, so, you know,
Well, a
I'm
man knows too.
right. That's
I mean, we all know the hair state. You can feel it. If you're asking the question, you already know the answer.
that's true.
Hmm.
The second part of his question was, how can you tell that you're really compatible? You know, how do you know that you're really compatible with someone to actually make it last for a lifetime?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, remember, I said in the beginning of our interview, homogamy or similarity is highly, highly correlated with long term relationship satisfaction. So, you want to be similar in the areas that matter: tastes, values, interests, um, religious, political, sexual values. The more similar you are, the more you're going to be able to have a long standing, happy relationship. Now, throw into the mix the sexual attraction, which is the glue that binds you, and you got the winning combination.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. That's awesome. Hoping, you know what? I guarantee this is helping these people that are asking, because that's the problem. So many people have these questions, but they're so afraid to
Yeah.
ask, you know, or they don't know how to ask
Well,
these things.
come to AskDrLove.com also because I am the web's first relationship advice site since 1995, and I have a searchable relationship advice database where I've been archiving all my answers to all kinds of questions, and it's free. So it's really a public service that I have been running this as a free charitable ministry. Any question you've got, you search it, you will find an answer
I have
on my
gone on there and
archives.
I've actually have read them, and I found a lot of answers to my questions right off
Yep.
there. I mean,
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
amazing. You are absolutely amazing.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so
Um,
happy you like my work because, it's been a labor of love and really, it has cost me a lot of time and a tremendous amount of money. I basically have no advertising. I've never charged any money. And it's like I'm running a church all by myself, and
right.
funding it all by myself.
Well, you are doing amazing, I'll tell you.
Mm.
You've helped me so much. Just, you know, since the time I came across you, we haven't been on here very long. We're a fairly new radio show, and this has been my passion for quite a number of years. I even went to school for communications for this. And
Huh.
the fact that, you know, through the man I'm with, and I've been with him for 6 years, and he gave me the strength and he stood behind me to make my dreams come true. And I'll tell you, it's amazing. But when you have somebody on here, you know, you're amazing and you're helping people. And to me, that is what it's all about is getting people on the air like you who, you know, you're willing to help people and you're out there and you're making a difference in in someone's marriage, staying together, or, you know,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
Well, it's really a calling for me because somebody said to me, "Why do you do it?" And I said, "Well, I was born 3 months early, and I spent the first 3 months in a preemie hospital. And then, of course, the rest of my life, I was beaten emotionally and physically. But this psychic I know said to me, while you were lying in that preemie nursery, you decided then to make it your mission to connect souls because you did not want others to suffer the pain of disconnection that you were feeling. So out of our deepest wounds come our greatest callings."
That is definitely true.
Hmm.
That is definitely true. I've always been someone who takes care of other people. That is my thing. Whatever possible way I can help anybody, you know, I'm there. And
Hmm.
if I can't help somebody, it just destroys my heart. I feel like, you
Oh,
know,
you're a doll. And you're a very, very sweet person.
well,
You're a very
thank
generous
you.
person. It's been lovely spending this time with you.
Oh, it's been amazing having you with us. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and to share your knowledge with us. And, you know, I advise everybody to get on that website and buy those books. You are amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me, and I'm sure we'll talk again
Well,
soon.
thank you. I hope so.
Take care.
Thank you, you too.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
That was amazing, guys. I just want to say again that this woman is amazing, and I want to thank her so much for taking the time to help us all out. in a subject that is absolutely part of our everyday lives, with our partners, with our families, with the people in our lives that mean the most to us. And she's out there and she's taking her time in all that passion and all that energy to help us to have better relationships and better love each other and better understand what it is to love one another and what it takes. She is great. Well, that's all we have time for today, and I want to thank you guys so much for being here with us. We post our shows, and if you want to know more about our guests and our upcoming shows, please visit us at Info2Rail webpage. All you got to do is Google Info2Rail. It's INFO number 2 rail, and click on our Google Sites page. We have all of our shows posted on YouTube, and that's the same thing you type in as Info2Rail at our YouTube. You guys are amazing for being here with us every week. And we have a lot more guests to bring you and a lot more fun to have with you guys. So I definitely want to thank you and advise you guys to go on to this website. That's Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and she is great. So you guys go on there and check that out, and you come back with us next week, I hope. And until then, may God bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you in these uncertain times. We'll see you soon.